My administration inherited a deficit of over $1 trillion. It's a responsibility that this generation did not ask for, but one that we must accept.
At his first primetime presidential news conference, President Obama pushed his stimulus package to the American people.
Now the pressure's on in the Senate to vote on the National Rescue Plan. Political analyst Tom Serafin joins us to talk about more about the president's message last night. Where is the man that promotes change and reassures the American public? Where is he?
Well, he's center stage. You know, with the last two presidents, Bill Clinton and George Bush, they waited till June and October for their first presidential live news conference in prime time. Last night he did it for 1 hour, right on the clock. I mean, the networks must have loved him. But he went out early in February. He needs to pass the stimulus. All his political capital that he has going into the White House is muscled for this stimulus package.
What did you think about his tone last night?
Well, you know, his tone was professorial. Listen, if I was Dave Axelrod and some of the guys, the media guys in the White House, I would say, hey, good performance. You know, we said what we needed to do. It's really an hour of a prime time when he really talked on all his talking points. I mean, I think he's a little bit overbearing when he says this is doom and gloom. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Carter in the last recession.
Well, I mean, that's what a lot of people are comparing it to. I know I read some stuff in the Washington Times over the weekend. That's what they said. Where is Mr. Hope? Instead, he's Dr. Doom.
Yeah. Well, listen, I turned the sound down and looked at him. He's a beautiful man. He jumps out of the screen. I mean, he's gorgeous.
What's going on at your house?
He's a beautiful man.
You were sure you're watching the right program?
My wife was out of town.
Oh, boy.
He can sell me snow in July. I mean, he's one of those guys that can tell you, so he doesn't need to be doom and gloom. But, you know, there's a lot of other ways he can sell this. And, you know, he's trying to get the Republicans on his side. But, you know, if he was so certain that this bill was going to go and this bill could do the job, he doesn't need the Republicans. He doesn't need anybody.
He doesn't
but the problem is,
I mean, honestly, like listening to him, I'm not totally convinced that he thinks this is the answer.
No, that's why they want Republicans on the bill. They want to share the pain.
I mean, how much of this is him and how much of this is like some people on, you know, on Capitol Hill? How many of this is people in Washington trying to convince him of stuff that maybe he's not even sure of himself?
Well, Nancy Pelosi is the problem. He's got more problems with Democrats than he does with Republicans. 535 members of Congress in both houses. 535 members of Congress. He's got 3 Republicans on this bill. Now, if the country is as deep in debt and deep in problems that he says he has right now, more Republicans should be on this thing. And if he's certain about this bill, the Republicans would jump on because they're in the minority. They need some help, too. The next election cycle is 8 months away before people in Illinois have to file for their nominated petition.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, there's a bunch of pork on this thing, and nobody's even really addressing that, it seems.
They are so good because the pork issue, they talk as earmarks. Earmarks are pork in the old-fashioned sense. The pork today comes with this. These bills go to governors, and the governors will then spend those monies on bridges and buildings and their own pork projects. But so he's bypassed the Congress when it comes to pork, and he's given it right to the governors.
What I thought was interesting last night, I watched the whole thing. I know a lot of people said they didn't want to watch it because they didn't want to be depressed. And I have to say, it was very depressing to watch some of the talk there. I thought it was interesting, some of the questions that were asked, and you and I both talked about this. There was no follow-up. You know, where are the Sam Donaldsons and the Dan Rathers and the people who would, you know, really challenge some of these some of the responses?
It's not there. But if you're in the White House and you wanted a good show, you got a good show last night. If you're in the press corps, listen, this was like Derek Jeter playing with little leaguers.
Right.
This guy, you know, the White House press corps is no match for this guy. And right now, the loving is still going on. He needs their help to move that forward. He had one of the talk show hosts from one of the liberal talk shows sitting in the front row, and people were complaining about the fact that this guy was there and you didn't have Sean Hannity there or somebody from the right. The bottom line is he's the president. As he says, I won. It's my game and it's my ball, and we're going to do it my way. And right now he's doing it his way. He's got Nancy Pelosi. He's got the Congress doing it his way. The Republicans are not doing it his way. You can only hope if you're a Republican that maybe this doesn't really work as well as you hope. But then you have to hope for the country. You want the country to get back on its feet.
I think everybody wants what's best. So even if it's his way, is it the right way? I think it's the question that everybody's asking right now, regardless of your political affiliation.
The problem is that no one knows. And you take a look at what happened with the market last Friday when the unemployment reports came out, the 7.6%.
Yeah, but does history show us?
The market went up. Yeah.
Right. So the
but does
market-
history show us, though, that more government spending will get us out of a recession?
Well, historically, it doesn't. I mean, we just saw what happened in Japan during the lost decade of
Right.
the 90s. We saw what happened with FDR. Unfortunately, World War II pulled us out of that recession, depression. We had unemployment close to 30%. I think we even hit 30%. Today, we're at 7.6%. It's not as bad as we think it is, but with all the talk about it being so bad, people are sitting home not spending their money. What are you going to do in the market? Now it's at the bottom.
Yep.
Do you get out? Do you stay?
Right. Tone.
What do people do?
What do you do?
So everybody's on the edge, and they're all waiting for the president to lead. And right now, the president says, I inherited this mess. I inherited this. And all of a sudden, who did he inherit it from? Republicans or George Bush. But if he inherited the bad, he also inherited the good. And eventually, the Republicans will need to talk about that.
All right, Tom, thank you for joining us this
Tom.
morning.
Welcome.